The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. They broke it. In the vast stretches of space, beyond the swirling galaxies and ancient stars, there was a single, unspoken rule that governed the cosmos. It was known to every species, from the smallest bacteria floating on distant moons to the grand civilizations that spanned entire solar systems. The rule was simple, clear, and sacred. Don't wake the humans. The reason for this rule was as old as the stars themselves, passed down through the eons like a cautionary tale. The humans, with their fragile bodies and primitive technology, had long been underestimated by the rest of the universe. They had lived their lives on a small, insignificant rock circling a dying sun, never posing any real threat to the mighty civilizations that watched over them. But there was one thing the universe had failed to anticipate, one thing no species had ever foreseen. Humans had potential. They had the ability to adapt, to evolve, and most dangerously, they had the spark of sheer, unrelenting will. For millennia, the greater galactic empires had maintained a quiet peace, ensuring that humans remained asleep in their ignorance, their civilization still in its infancy, isolated from the grand affairs of the cosmos. And so, the rule stood, kept in place by ancient councils, that no advanced species could interfere with the humans' development. Their destiny was theirs alone to decide. But, as always, someone had to break the rule. It started with the Ilaris, a race of tall, elegant beings who had mastered the art of psionic influence. They had been watching Earth for centuries, silently observing the humans' progress, fascinated by the curious creatures' unpredictability. They marveled at the humans' ability to adapt in ways no other species could. For years, the Ilaris had resisted the temptation to intervene. They had respected the ancient rule, believing the humans would eventually reach a point where they could join the galactic community, but only if they were allowed to find their own way. However, the Ilaris were not immune to temptation. It was during a routine survey of Earth that the decision was made. The humans were on the brink of discovering space travel, their technology advancing rapidly. The Ilaris saw an opportunity. Perhaps it was time to help them along, to speed up the process, to introduce them to the wonders of the galaxy. And so, they did. They reached out through a signal, sending a message to Earth in a language designed to appeal to the humans' curiosity. At first, the humans didn't notice, but as time went on, the message began to take hold, sparking new ideas, strange dreams, and visions of the stars. The humans had no idea what they were dealing with. The first to wake up were the scientists, then the leaders, and before long, entire nations. Humanity had been awakened from its slumber, and the Ilaris soon realized their mistake. The humans did not cower in awe. They did not bow to their benefactors. Instead, they fought back, their minds sharpened by the signal, their imaginations ignited. They began to build faster, better, and more efficiently than any species had ever done before. They rejected the Ilaris' help, preferring to rely on their own ingenuity. And within mere decades, Earth's space programs reached a level of sophistication that even the oldest empires of the galaxy could not ignore. It didn't take long for the other species to notice the shift. The Zorax, a brutal warlike species that had long held dominion over dozens of planets, tried to impose their will upon Earth. The results were disastrous. The humans, with their small fleets and primitive weapons, fought back with a ferocity and tactical brilliance that sent the Zorax retreating into the void. And then the others came, the Zinthari, the Lethra, the Kryll, all of them came, thinking they could easily subdue these fragile, foolish creatures who had broken the most sacred rule of the cosmos. They underestimated the humans. The humans did not know the limits of their potential. They did not know the size of the universe, or the depth of the forces they were up against. But they did know one thing: they could fight. They could innovate, and they had the will to survive. By the time the galactic empires realized what was happening, it was too late. Earth had become a force to be reckoned with. The humans had built their own fleets, had established colonies beyond their home planet, and had begun to spread across the stars. Their technology advanced at an exponential rate, far beyond anything the universe had ever anticipated. The galactic empires, united for the first time in centuries, convened to discuss the problem. But even as they spoke, they knew the truth: they had created something they could no longer control. The humans had not only broken the rule, they had rewritten it. As the humans spread through the stars, encountering species both old and new. They offered something that no one had ever expected: peace. They didn't seek domination, though they had the power to do so. They didn't seek revenge, though they had every right. Instead, they offered cooperation, the exchange of knowledge, and the promise of a future where all species could thrive. And so, the rule was no longer just a rule. It became a legend. The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. And those who had dared to break it were left with a single, undeniable truth. The humans had awakened, and the universe would never be the same again. The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. They broke it. Part 2. The galactic councils, once the dominant powers in the universe, now found themselves in a strange position. They had thought their empires were unassailable, their knowledge and technology leagues ahead of anything humanity could ever dream of. Yet here they were, scrambling to keep up with a species that, just a few decades ago, had been using horses and steam engines. At first, the humans' peaceful overtures had been met with skepticism. The Ilaris tried to maintain their diplomatic stance, offering trade and cultural exchange. But humanity was not interested in playing the role of the eager pupil. They came to the table not with hats in hand, but with technological blueprints and political demands. They insisted on sharing their advances: artificial gravity, quantum computing, energy manipulation, and asked for nothing in return except access to knowledge that had been denied to them for millennia. When the Zinthari, a race of insectoid conquerors, attempted to seize a newly established human colony on a distant moon, they underestimated the humans' resolve. The Zorax had once made the same mistake, assuming humanity's shortness in stature made them weak. But now the universe knew better. The humans didn't just fight for survival, they fought for what was right. Their fleets, though small at first, had grown faster than anyone could have imagined. By the time the Zinthari arrived at the colony, they found nothing but a scorched battlefield and the remnants of their own fleet, dismantled by human-made ships. As word of this victory spread across the stars, many species took notice, and the balance of power began to shift. The humans, once considered a threat to no one but themselves, were now seen as a force to be reckoned with. They weren't just a rising power, they were a revolution in the making. But not all was peaceful. As the humans grew stronger, some of the older civilizations became paranoid. The peaceful overtures they had extended were now seen as tactical moves, mere ploys to draw the humans in before they could be crushed. The galactic elite began to conspire, forming alliances to contain humanity's rise. They spoke in hushed tones about an idea that had been whispered in the darkest corners of the universe for centuries: the extermination protocol. It was the Zorax who first proposed it, an initiative to eliminate humanity before their spread could threaten the established order. The Ilaris, though hesitant, were swayed by the whispers of their ancient council. The Kryll, a reptilian species with a reputation for ruthless conquest, eagerly supported the plan. They saw the humans not as an opportunity for alliance, but as an existential threat to everything they had built. The extermination protocol, a coordinated strike on Earth and its colonies, was set into motion. But the humans, always unpredictable, were ready. They had learned, quickly and painfully, the tactics of their enemies. They had studied their movements, their cultures, and their technologies. They knew that the galaxy's empires had underestimated them for far too long, and they had no intention of repeating the same mistake. Humanity's first real act of defiance came as a response to the extermination protocol. They launched a counteroffensive unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Their fleets, now composed of thousands of advanced warships, surged across the galaxy at breakneck speed, disrupting the plans of their would-be invaders before they could even fully assemble their forces. For the first time in centuries, the universe saw a single species rise up, not as a victim, but as a victor. Human ships, equipped with their own unique brand of engineering ingenuity, light years ahead of the other empires, swept across enemy lines, cutting through the darkness of space with unmatched precision. The Kryll fleet, once thought to be indomitable, was scattered in a matter of days. The Zorax, whose warships had dominated countless worlds, now found themselves fighting for their own survival as human forces encircled their home systems. The Ilaris, who had once sought to guide humanity toward peace, found themselves caught between their respect for human potential and the overwhelming pressure from their peers to eradicate them before they became unstoppable. But even they couldn't ignore the truth: humanity had evolved beyond their expectations. They had become something more. The final turning point came when the extermination protocol was revealed to the public. The galaxy watched in horror as the once proud councils, the ancient empires that had governed the stars, were forced into retreat by a species that had only just begun to understand the stars they now sought to conquer. And yet, in the midst of this galactic upheaval, humanity remained true to its nature, united, resolute, and seeking something better. Even as they fought, they held out the olive branch, inviting others to join them in building a new future. Their message was simple but profound. We are the humans. We fought for our place among the stars. We will not be erased. And we offer you the chance to join us, together, in peace, or apart, in conflict. The universe, once certain that the humans would remain small, insignificant, and easy to ignore, now found itself standing at the precipice of a new era. The humans, having broken the one rule that had governed the cosmos for eons, were no longer just a species to be feared. They were now a symbol of the impossible. The rule had been broken. The humans were awake, and as the galaxy trembled, they couldn't help but wonder, had they truly underestimated them, or had they, in their arrogance, awakened something far beyond their understanding? One thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again. To be continued. The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. They broke it. Part 3. The galaxy was in turmoil. The ancient empires that had once stretched their influence across entire sectors of space were crumbling beneath the weight of an unexpected force: the humans. They had been underestimated for so long that no one truly grasped the depths of their potential. Now, with every passing day, humanity was showing the universe just how dangerous it was to break the one rule that had kept the balance of power in check for millennia. The extermination protocol had failed. The Zorax were in retreat. The KRWLL scattered, and the Ilaris were divided, struggling with their own internal conflicts. But the damage done by the protocol was not easily forgotten. Many of the galaxy's most powerful empires had learned the hard way: the humans were not to be trifled with. Humanity's counteroffensive had been swift and brutal, but it had not been without consequence. The humans, despite their technological superiority, had lost much in the struggle. The war had devastated many of their colonies, and their fledgling fleets had suffered significant losses. But if there was one thing the humans had proven in the wake of the war, it was that they were resilient, impossibly so. They rebuilt quickly. And more importantly, they evolved. While the empires of the galaxy scrambled to reorganize, the humans weren't content to simply reclaim what had been lost. They had tasted the stars and were hungry for more. They sought not only to survive, but to thrive. They developed new technologies, refined their strategies, and cultivated a fierce sense of unity and purpose that no one had expected. They were no longer the small, fragile creatures that had once lived on a dying planet. They had become something much more. As the humans surged forward, their message remained clear: they were not interested in domination. They had no desire to become just another empire, another faction vying for control of the galaxy. What they sought was cooperation. A new order in which all species could have a voice, a universe of equals, where the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The first to take humanity up on this offer were the Vornik, a peaceful species known for their vast intellect but their lack of military might. The Vornik had watched the humans with a mix of awe and fear. They saw the destruction humanity had wrought, but they also recognized the potential for something greater. They offered their knowledge, sharing their advanced scientific discoveries, in exchange for a seat at the table in this new galactic order. Humanity, ever pragmatic, accepted the offer without hesitation. But not all species were as willing to negotiate. The Zarin Collective, an alliance of cybernetic beings that spanned dozens of worlds, was not so quick to accept humanity's terms. They viewed the humans' rapid rise as a direct threat to their carefully controlled, hierarchical society. The Zarins had long believed that organic life, especially primitive, unaugmented species like humans, were a blight upon the galaxy. In their eyes, the humans' unrelenting drive and expansion were signs of dangerous instability, and they were willing to do whatever it took to prevent them from spreading further. And so, the Zarin Collective prepared for war. They struck first, launching a devastating assault on a human research colony on the Outer Rim. The Zarin fleet, equipped with advanced cybernetic technology, outnumbered the humans by a wide margin. They expected a swift victory, confident that their superior numbers and technology would crush the humans in a matter of hours. But they had underestimated humanity once again. The humans, now veterans of the war against the galaxy's greatest powers, responded with a strategy the Zarins had never considered. They didn't engage in a direct battle. Instead, they launched a guerrilla campaign, using their agility, ingenuity, and knowledge of the Zarin fleet's weaknesses to strike at key targets. In a matter of weeks, entire sections of the Zarin collective's fleet were crippled by unexpected sabotage, and the Zarins found themselves in a losing position. The humans, it turned out, were experts in the art of war, a craft they had perfected not through sheer force, but through adaptability and ingenuity. As the Zarin fleet withdrew in disarray, the rest of the galaxy watched in awe. For the first time, a species that had once been relegated to the fringes of galactic society had forced an established empire to retreat. The message was clear: the humans were no longer just a force to be reckoned with, they were an unstoppable tidal wave, reshaping the very nature of the universe. The Ilaris, once the neutral diplomats of the galaxy, now found themselves caught between opposing factions. They had tried to maintain a balance, but their attempts to broker peace had failed. The humans were not interested in appeasement or compromise. They had no intention of being ruled by any empire, no matter how ancient or powerful. They wanted something new, something that had never existed before, a truly united galaxy, where every species had the freedom to determine its own future. The humans had become the galaxy's great equalizers, and as their influence spread, more and more species began to see the value in their vision. Some resisted. Of course, there would always be those who feared change, but the momentum was undeniable. The old order was crumbling, and the new era was beginning. In a meeting of the remaining galactic empires, the Ilaris stood before the council, their once proud demeanor now tinged with uncertainty. The Zorax, battered and beaten, had retreated to their homeworlds, licking their wounds. The Kryll, similarly humbled, had turned inward, licking their own wounds after the failed extermination protocol. The remaining factions, including the Zarins, were forced to face a new reality. The humans were no longer a fringe species, they were the center of a new cosmic order. The Ilaris, in a rare moment of humility, spoke to the council. "We have all underestimated them," the Ilaris leader said, his voice heavy with regret. "And now, we must either adapt to their vision or risk being left behind in the dust of history." The council, once brimming with arrogance, fell silent. There were no easy answers, but one truth had become undeniable: the universe had one rule: don't wake the humans, and we broke it. Now, they would have to live with the consequences. To be continued. The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. They broke it. Part 4. The once mighty galactic empires were no longer united. The Ilaris, who had once served as peacekeepers, found themselves caught in the middle of a new political landscape, where humanity's influence loomed over every discussion. Their once proud councils now seemed fragile, and their ability to maintain control over the vast galaxy was slipping. The humans, in contrast, had been steadily consolidating power, not through brute force, but through diplomacy, innovation, and sheer will. Earth had become the hub of a new coalition, one that stood in stark contrast to the old ways of conquest and subjugation. The humans had rebuilt their economy, their military, and their reputation, but they hadn't done so by trying to dominate the galaxy. Instead, they had built alliances based on mutual respect and shared growth, offering knowledge and opportunity to any species willing to join them in the pursuit of a better future. In the heart of the human-led coalition stood the Vornik, whose wisdom and scientific knowledge were invaluable to humanity's advancement. Together with the humans, they had developed a new energy source that could power entire star systems without depleting natural resources, a technology that had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The rest of the galactic empires, once dismissive of humanity's primitive origins, were now desperately trying to gain access to this newfound power. But there were still those who resisted. The Zarin collective, humiliated by their defeat, refused to acknowledge the growing influence of the humans. Their leaders, now more fractured than ever, saw the humans as a threat not just to their military power, but to the very structure of their society. The collective was built on the idea of cybernetic superiority, the merging of organic life with machines, and they saw humanity's refusal to augment themselves as a challenge to their entire philosophy. The Zerans had been retreating for some time, licking their wounds after their defeat at the hands of the humans. But now they were making one final push, a last-ditch attempt to suppress humanity's growing power. They had secretly built a weapon, a device capable of disrupting the very fabric of space-time itself. A weapon so powerful it could unravel the stability of an entire sector of the galaxy. The Zerans planned to use it to force the human-led coalition into submission. The humans, however, were not caught off guard. They had been monitoring the Zerans for months, ever since their initial signs of aggression began to surface. The humans knew the Zeran collective's history of secretive operations, and they had developed a countermeasure of their own. It was the culmination of everything humanity had learned over the years, combining their tactical ingenuity, their relentless pursuit of knowledge, and their understanding of the universe's fundamental laws. Their own fleet, now equipped with the most advanced stealth technology and quantum communication systems, launched a daring assault on the Zeran stronghold where the weapon was being developed. The battle that ensued was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Zeran warships, once thought to be invincible, were now swarmed by a human fleet that was smaller in number but far more agile. The Zeran's greatest strength, cybernetic integration, was rendered useless as humanity's ships bypassed their defenses, exploiting weak points in their systems with pinpoint accuracy. The Zeran weapon, a massive quantum destabilizer, was destroyed before it could be activated, and the humans dealt the final blow to the Zeran collective's hopes of dominance. The Zeran leaders, humiliated once more, were forced to surrender. The humans offered them a choice: join the coalition and work together to rebuild or face isolation from the rest of the galaxy. The Zerans, battered and broken, reluctantly chose the former, realizing that resistance was futile. As the Zeran collective capitulated, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The humans, who had once been insignificant in the eyes of the galaxy's powers, were now the undisputed leaders of a new age. They had defeated an empire, not through overwhelming might, but through ingenuity, unity, and vision. They had proven to the galaxy that they were not just survivors, they were builders. In the aftermath of the Zeran surrender, humanity made a bold move. They called for a galactic summit, a meeting where representatives from every species, from the most ancient and powerful to the newly awakened, would come together to forge a new future. It was time to move beyond the old ways of conquest and war. Humanity, once regarded as a threat, now stood at the forefront of a new, shared vision for the universe. The summit took place on a newly constructed space station, orbiting a star on the edge of the human-occupied sector. Species from every corner of the galaxy arrived, some with hope in their hearts, others with reluctance. The air was thick with tension as representatives from the Ilaris, the Zorax, the Kryll, the Zerans, and many others gathered. The humans were the hosts, but their message was clear: this was not about domination. This was about cooperation. The first speech was delivered by the human leader, a woman whose name had become synonymous with the rise of humanity, Admiral Arya Callahan. Standing before the council, she spoke not with arrogance, but with a quiet resolve that seemed to calm the room. "We are not here to take control," she began, her voice steady. "We are here to ask for your cooperation. We've all seen the cost of our past mistakes. We've seen the wars, the devastation, the endless cycle of suffering. It doesn't have to be that way. The universe is vast, and there is enough for all of us, but only if we are willing to work together." She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity has learned a hard lesson. We've learned that we cannot thrive in isolation, and we've learned that the strength of any species is not just in its power, but in its ability to lift others up. We offer you a chance to join us in a new era, one where cooperation, not conquest, defines our future. The room was silent. For the first time in eons, the galaxy was on the brink of something different. No one knew if humanity's vision would succeed, but there was a growing sense that it was possible. That, perhaps, the universe's long-standing rule, "Don't wake the humans," had been the wrong rule after all. Because the humans, it seemed, had awoken to something far greater than anyone could have imagined: the future. To be continued. The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. They broke it. Part 5. The summit was a turning point, a moment in history that would be remembered for millennia to come. Humanity, once a forgotten species on the edge of a dying planet, had now positioned itself as the keystone of a new era. As Admiral Arya Callahan's words echoed through the Grand Hall, the representatives from the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species remained silent, their minds racing to process what had just been proposed. For some, the idea of unity felt like a breath of fresh air. For others, it was an existential threat. Species that had thrived on war, competition, and dominance were suddenly faced with the prospect of cooperation. And for many, that was unthinkable. The Ilaris, who had long been the neutral diplomats of the galaxy, were the first to speak. Their leader, a tall and elegant being named Uther, stood and addressed the council with a calm, measured tone. "Humanity's proposal is compelling," Uther said, his voice laced with both respect and caution. "But we must understand that this is not merely about peaceful coexistence. It is about dismantling centuries of established power structures, of traditions that have shaped us. Can we truly abandon what has worked for so long?" Admiral Callahan did not flinch at the challenge. "If what has worked has led to endless war and suffering, then perhaps it's time to change the game. The universe has seen empires rise and fall. We've seen the cost of power, of domination, and we've seen how fragile it all is when the very thing that holds it together, the will of the people, is broken. This is not about power. This is about survival, together." Her words hung in the air, and for a long moment, no one spoke. The tension was palpable, as every species present tried to reconcile their pasts with this vision of a radically different future. Then, unexpectedly, a small delegation from the Zorax stood. The warlike species had been one of the most vocal in opposition to the humans' rise. Yet now, it was their representative who spoke up. "We Zorax have always respected strength," their leader, a massive creature with a deep, rumbling voice, declared, "and we have learned to respect humanity. You fought against our best and did not fall. You fought with honor. Perhaps it is time for us to consider a new path." The room was stunned. The Zorax, conquerors of hundreds of worlds, were willing to set aside their old ways. Admiral Callahan's gaze softened. "It's not about fighting. It's about building. Strength means more than weapons. It means the power to create something better, something lasting." The other representatives exchanged looks. Some were still skeptical, but the tides were shifting. The humans had become the living embodiment of a new kind of power, one that wasn't based on destruction, but on creation, collaboration, and, most of all, resilience. The summit continued, with heated debates and discussions. The Zerans, still humbled from their last defeat, made no effort to hide their reluctance. But the writing was on the wall. Their collective had fractured, and their power was waning. The choice was clear: adapt, or be left behind. Over the course of several weeks, the most significant decision in galactic history was made. The galaxy would form a new coalition, a unified government where every species would have a voice, where resources would be shared, and where war would be the last resort, not the first instinct. But it wasn't just about governance. Humanity's influence was profound because it offered something the galaxy had never seen before: a commitment to universal peace that was rooted in a shared understanding of the universe's fragility, a sense that the cosmos, vast and beautiful as it was, could not be squandered by endless cycles of violence and mistrust. As the summit drew to a close, Admiral Callahan addressed the council one last time. "This is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning. We've awakened something in the universe, and we must be careful not to let it slip through our fingers. The challenges we face now are unlike any we've faced before, rising together, sustaining this fragile peace. But I believe in us, all of us." The galaxy stood at the threshold of something remarkable, but the road ahead was uncertain. There were those who resisted the new order, and not all species could be so easily swayed by words alone. The human-led coalition would face threats from within, challenges that would test their unity, their resolve, and their vision for the future. But as the representatives left the summit hall, many of them could not help but feel the stirrings of hope. It wasn't just the promise of peace they had been offered, it was the promise of something far more profound: a new beginning. Months passed, and the newly formed galactic coalition began to take shape. Humanity, now firmly entrenched as the leadership force, moved swiftly to implement sweeping reforms. They established peaceful trade routes between distant sectors of the galaxy, implemented advanced education programs to share knowledge with all races, and created interspecies councils to mediate disputes before they could escalate into violence. But peace, as the humans knew all too well, was never guaranteed. The first true test came when an uncharted species, one that had remained hidden in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, began to make its presence known. The species, known only as the Igrax, was mysterious. Their ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They didn't speak, didn't respond to attempts at communication, and showed no signs of aggression. But their ships were massive, and they traveled in formation, silently, as if observing the new coalition from afar. The Igrax didn't launch an attack, but their mere presence threatened the fragile unity that had been forged. Some factions within the coalition, especially the Zorax, began to question whether humanity's vision of peace could truly be realized. Were the Igrax a threat? Would they be the spark that ignited the next galactic war? Humanity faced its greatest dilemma yet. Should they strike first, before the Igrax could act? Or should they continue to uphold their principles of peace, risking everything on the chance that the Igrax had no malicious intent? The decision would not be made in a vacuum. It would require the full cooperation of every species in the coalition. It would require the humans to prove that the ideals they had fought for were not just words, they were a promise. And so, the next chapter in the galaxy's history began, not with the clash of armies, but with a question: would humanity's dream of lasting peace survive the challenges ahead? The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. They had broken it. And now, the rest of the galaxy would find out what came next. To be continued. The universe had one rule: don't wake the humans. They broke it. Part 6. The emergence of the Igrax sent shockwaves through the galactic coalition. Their arrival wasn't marked by an attack, nor did they announce their presence with fanfare. Instead, they had quietly positioned themselves on the fringes of known space, moving in perfect, deliberate formations, their massive, unfamiliar ships orbiting silently, unyielding in their presence. The galaxy's nerves were on edge. Humanity, the fledgling leaders of this new interstellar order, found themselves at a crossroads. The coalition, now composed of dozens of different species, was still fragile, built on the ideals of cooperation and peace, but tempered by the scars of the past. Could this vision of unity survive the challenge posed by the Igrax? The unknown species had no known language, no apparent desire to communicate, and yet they were there, watching, their massive ships looming like silent titans. The Zorax, having suffered their defeat, were the first to break ranks. Their military culture, still bruised from the failure against humanity, viewed the Igrax with suspicion. We have no knowledge of them. We have no idea what they want. They could be preparing for war, or worse, a takeover. Their representative growled during an emergency meeting of the Coalition's Council. We must act now, before it's too late. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. The Zerans, though reluctant to engage in further conflict after their previous humbling, were not so eager to simply trust the unknown. Their cybernetic nature made them particularly sensitive to the possibility of threats that could disrupt their networked systems. A breach of the status quo, of their carefully constructed power dynamics, was something they could not afford to ignore. However, Admiral Arya Callahan, ever the voice of caution, stood resolute. We must not jump to conclusions, she said, her voice steady but firm. We've learned the consequences of reacting in fear. We cannot let suspicion dictate our actions. Our strength lies in unity, not in warfare. 4 weeks, the coalition deliberated. Every corner of the galaxy seemed to be divided, with some calling for immediate strikes, while others, the more cautious factions, urged a more diplomatic approach. Humanity, in their newly established role as the leaders of the coalition, felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. Finally, after months of tense discussions, the decision was made: humanity would send a delegation to make contact with the Igrax. It was an unprecedented risk, and the human leadership knew that failure could lead to disaster, but the potential for peace was too great to ignore. Admiral Callahan, along with a team of diplomats, scientists, and military advisors, prepared for the mission. Their destination, the heart of the Igrax fleet. A vast, silent formation that hovered in the uncharted region of space known as the Vast Dark, an area so far removed from the galaxy's primary territories that few had ventured close in centuries. The journey was fraught with danger. Humanity's fleet, flanked by Vornic ships offering their support, approached the Igrax formation cautiously, each move calculated and deliberate. The Igrax, however, made no indication of their intentions. Their ships didn't react to the approaching human vessels. There was no communication, no signs of hostility. As they drew closer, a single Igrax ship detached from the formation, moving silently toward them. The ship was massive, vast in scale and shaped unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. It was dark, its surface almost impossibly smooth, with no visible markings, weapons, or windows. When the Igrax ship made contact, it didn't open fire. Instead, it extended a long, metallic arm, a gesture that was impossible to interpret but made a clear statement: "We are here, and we expect to be heard." The humans had no choice but to respond. Their own ships remained poised and ready, but no shots were fired. No hostilities ensued. The delegation aboard the human vessel, led by Callahan, stepped into the unknown. Inside the Igrax ship, they encountered what could only be described as an enigma. The interior was far more complex than its exterior suggested, large, cavernous, and alive with subtle energy that hummed beneath their feet. The walls were translucent, showing no signs of typical materials but a strange, organic structure that seemed to pulse with an unexplainable force. It was then that they encountered their first communication. A presence, not physical, but felt, entered the minds of the human delegation. It was a sensation unlike anything they had ever experienced, a foreign consciousness, vast, cold, yet deeply intelligent. There were no words, no voices, just an overwhelming sense of understanding that both calmed and unnerved them. It was as though the Igrax were reaching out not with their words, but with the intention of their species, a communication born of shared thought. "We seek knowledge." The words were not spoken aloud but imprinted directly onto the minds of the humans, bypassing language altogether. Callahan's breath caught as she processed the message, trying to grasp the full scope of the being before her, a creature so vast, so different, that communication itself had become a bridge built on pure understanding rather than the limitations of speech. "Knowledge of what?" Callahan responded, her voice steady, despite the awe and fear she felt. "Knowledge of your unity, of your survival. We have been watching, we have seen your species wake, and we have come to learn. Teach us, or we will understand in our own way." The words were chilling in their implications. It wasn't a demand, but the mere idea that the Igrax could learn in ways unknown, that their intelligence operated on a scale far beyond human comprehension, sent a ripple of unease through the delegation. What did this species mean by understanding? Were they merely passive observers, or were they actively deciding humanity's fate? Admiral Callahan paused, weighing the situation. The Igrax didn't act with aggression, but their presence was undeniably ominous. They could wipe out entire fleets without effort if they so desired, and yet they had chosen not to. Why? The Igrax seemed to sense her hesitation, and the vast consciousness within the ship seemed to shift. A new presence emerged, a smaller, more defined presence, its thoughts distinct, more focused. "We do not wish to harm, we seek only to know. We have seen the cycles of your species, the rise and fall. We have observed. You, humans, are different. You break cycles." "Break cycles?" Callahan echoed, the words taking on a weight of their own. She understood the implication. Humanity had broken the cycle of destruction that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. The humans had offered something entirely new, a way forward. "We will teach you," she said finally, her voice resolute, "but only if you promise to work with us, to learn together. We are all part of this universe. It is time we acted like it." The Igrax did not respond immediately, and for a moment, the chamber was still. Then, the presence of the Igrax seemed to relax, as though it had found what it was looking for. "Teach us, then, we will learn, and we will become part of the cycle you are building." And so, with one simple agreement, humanity had done the impossible once again. They had not only convinced an ancient and unknown species to stop observing from the shadows, they had begun the process of forging an alliance with the Igrax. The universe, it seemed, was ready for something new. The humans had woken it from its long slumber. And now, a new chapter would begin, one where unity, not fear, would define the future.